all over wherever you are, in northern Uganda, western Uganda, eastern Uganda, central Uganda, and yes, also the west. We would like to just welcome you back and assure you that the continuation of our discussion still hinges on the evaluation of Uganda's socio-economic policy reforms that reduces poverty. There is where we appreciate that we have achieved a milestone, but there is where we are having critical issues that the government needs to sort out so that we can have a poverty-free country. And in the first session, Madam Chomahanji Dorothy said that one of the impediment of corruption, it should be dealt with if we are to achieve a poverty-free country. Fight corruption, then be free from poverty. The reason why we talk about corruption suffocates the deliberate intention that the government should, at times either should pursue for reasonable, effective, and efficient distribution of resources. Leaving that aside, as we continue with the same discussion, Madam Chomanji Dorothy, I posed the question, an analytical observation to you, and indicated on whereas we appreciate that we have infrastructure development, but a lot is desirable. Currently, where we are as a country, before we go to infrastructure, if we have any shortage or provision of some good, let's say, fuel, for just 1 month, as you understand the current situation is, immediately you expect the country to be in a crisis. A crisis in which way? In terms of the availability of fuel. And that immediately affects the business. And that has an impact on how the economic crowds of the people can succeed or may not succeed, as you understand what's happening. We don't have the fuel reserves, which is a policy reform that would have been able to help us in a liberalized economy where the consumers should be protected. That's me and you. We don't have under the policy that is liberalization of agriculture sector. We don't have a national agricultural reserve. Yeah, we call them, yes, the
food banks, food reserve.
Yeah, food reserve. There is to have it even from not only at the national level. There is one of a policy reform proposed by one of the political party. That's the Front for Democratic Change. They're talking of having the reservoirs, the food reserves from the sub-county level to the district level, then to the regional level, then to the national level. And these are some of the reforms we believe that could have helped us and to assure us that we can have, an indicator of reducing poverty. But leaving that also aside, we appreciate that there is an increase of provision of social amenities. The National Water Sewage Corporation, as a per-state body which has public-private partnership, and also other electricity companies. But the challenge, if you go to look at how many citizens, I'm talking of what they refine in Swahili, the wananchi, the local person outside there. You talk about electricity, but I can't let me now identify you with, let's say, Xoro. Electricity from the production center, let's say, from Jinja to Xoro, but between Kabale and Xoro, passing via districts, I'm sampling 3 districts. Out of 40 households, how many are accessing the electricity is another story. So we say we have electricity, but how many are accessing it, and is it improving the economic livelihoods of the people? Kindly come on as we continue to interact, sharing information with the viewers.
For the issue of electricity, Doctor, it is something that baffles a lot of us because the statistics show we are really producing a lot of electricity and enough electricity. Now, extending that electricity to the rural areas, it is something that would really improve livelihoods. The question is, we are not able to. Why? The percentage of, we have umeme that is distributing electricity. It is a monopoly. It is a monopoly. But has umeme succeeded in that mandate of distributing electricity? We have a very small portion or a very small percentage of electricity in you know.
It believes the taxes are too high and the government policy to regulate this, it seems to still be lacking. And on parliamentary floor, proposals have been pushed on and on, but seems not making headway on. And even where the presence of this supply of electricity in most of the regions, compared then to the level of poverty, it seems not, it's to be underutilized. Even the current quantity, even if as we go for loans, but the utilization. And yet I could believe those who are planners, this is for us in our analytical view, those who are planners, the Ministry of Finance, Economic Planning and Development, the Ministry of Investment, there is what we call return of investment, to know that the government is going to borrow this amount of trillion of money and put it in electricity. In a period of 3 to 4 years, our target is to improve on our local industrial cottages, either for clothes, either for agricultural processing, to this rate. And the effort equally is put to make sure they track who are in the production chain to go for that investment. And to me, as I make my critical observation, over to you again, it shows us that matching with part of the economic policies to the deliberate intention to reduce poverty remains having a bridge which is not yet, you know, which is still wider for the community and for us as analysts. Maybe you can have some more input in that.
And again, that brings us back to what I said earlier, the service delivery. Service delivery is what is failing us, because the policies are available. Policies are available. Government has really taken that initiative to put infrastructure in place. Like you have said, we are borrowing money to put these dams in place. We are borrowing money to put all this infrastructure in place. Why is it that it is not trickling down to the person who is the intended beneficiary? And that is where we should come in now. It is because service delivery is an issue. Service delivery, in particular public service delivery. Okay? There really should be a deliberate effort to improve service delivery in this country. And really, if government takes this up, we shall see a lot of the problems that we are facing really go down. And
as you're talking about that, you look at the nature of the improved status of infrastructure you talked about, the construction of roads. Indeed, this is what is even being agitated, the construction of roads from Uganda across to where? Across to Congo. Because that goes beyond the boundaries of Uganda. Of course, we're having challenges over also some of the roads in Uganda. The roads coverage is still wanting. And another challenge is, while we are talking about the improvement of these socioeconomic development projects and policies, some regions tend to lag behind than others. The poverty index, which I was able to obtain from here in this document, it indicates that it's an example, a sampled one. By 1999, it is a different story now. In the central and western region, poverty was at 58.8%, and now, but then later to 54%. And of course, we were now evaluating to where we are at 28% generally. There are some parts of this country where our citizens are still suffering to access the provision of shelter, especially housing facilities. The housing policy, which is a socio-economic reform required, at the level where we are in our country, we are not supposed to be having any citizen who doesn't have where to stay, where to sleep, and you are under grass-thatched house, especially if you go to the eastern. I've seen that common. West seems to have improved greatly, but I saw this in Eastern, in the Teso land, especially in part of Soroti some years ago, and also part of Guru. Much as also there have been some improvement. I'm not saying that it is totally in a poor state, but we are having a percentage of some good Ugandan citizens who are sleeping in grass-thatched houses. I know you outside there who are in urban centers, you could not want to hear this, or you don't know that it's happening. Because for you, it's like one time, I share this prayer with you. By that time, but a bit has changed, but it's not yet sorted out. A certain, son of somebody was traveling from part of the northeastern, and then crossed River Nile. And by the time began to see the change of some new development future, say, you mean this is also part of Uganda? There was a serious gap. 2020, while I was working in Parliament as a technocrat, we moved with a team we were going to Bududa. And in the middle between Bududa and some of those districts, deep there in the villages, let's not only look at the tamaka we see here. We are talking about the livelihoods of the people down there. For sure, people were living in a bad state. The good houses you see here and maybe in part of other areas, it was because the poverty indicated begins with the basics, the basic needs. Do you have where to stay, to reside? Do you have a shelter? Do you have water? Do you have food? Do you have at least, let's say, 4,000 as your take home as a saving out of what you've done? And compared to the current situation, because it is still something that we are not talking about economic development, we are talking about poverty reduction. And it seems we still need to do a lot. What are we missing to do, and what should we do?
Doctor, from really research has been done regarding that level of poverty. Really, there is nothing that is going to work other than a hand-holding approach. Hand-holding approach. You're going to have to hold the hands of these poor people as a government. You're going to have to innovate for them. We're going to have to innovate for them. Because it is very unfair to expect that man in Karamoja, that man deep in Bududa or in Butaleja, to have this information, to know that, to have access to markets. We're going to have to do a hand-holding approach. And that is where maybe I really applaud some of these NGOs and the livelihood programs that they've set up. Because they have understood that there is a hand-holding approach that is really necessary to pull these people out of poverty. And as a government, we should be looking at, or the government should be looking at a hand-holding approach whereby they empower the leaders in these areas to actually support their people. If we are not going to do a hand-holding approach, it's going to be very difficult. Yes, we shall have the roads, but these people need these livelihoods really to transform, will require more concerted and more deliberate.
What do you think the government has failed to do in the critical observation? Because we are having the roads, you talked about them. I'm not discrediting your submitted information. We are talking about the infrastructure you're talking about. I also agreed, and I even brought you the example of the increased megawatt compared to the 1960, 86, and the current provision of electricity, the megawatts, is quite higher. And also other available opportunities, the improved telecommunication, the innovation in the social media, and all that. But back compared to the reduction of poverty and the realistic indicators, I'm talking of the reduction of poverty, not where they get, this is what we refer to the GDP. I'm not into that, because that one tends to lie us. And for economists outside there, this is very critical for us, because you cannot get the amount of the payment of taxes to measure the country economic growth by the Mukwano group or the business, whether it's deal as a straw businessman or Wavamuno, or you're talking about Nzei, because he contributes 1 billion taxes, and then you distribute that one to the 40% of Ugandans, and then you say Uganda, GDP has increased, poverty has reduced. No. Because you'll be creating a class of where we have the richer of the richest. And that class, there is a widened gap, and it will take time to realize what exactly should be done. The real sense of poverty reduction should go to the household. This is the common knowledge which the government indeed is aware of and tries maybe to tackle it. But our critical evaluation is this is not yet done satisfactorily. We are talking about programs, the parish development model. It's a new one. This one I don't want to rely on it much. I cannot at this level evaluate it because it's 1 year ago. We have had before National Agricultural Advisory Services. And through this program, if we count a lot of amount of money injected into it, it can go over 10 trillion, even to almost like 50% of the current national budget, if we count like 20 years ago, since 2002. And how it started, the advisory services, and it was had other programs under this the agricultural policy, or the liberalized agricultural policy from NADS, then now the NADS 1, NADS 2. But if you compare with the change of the livelihoods of the people, is it counting what has gone wrong, and how can we be able to bridge the gap?
Like I've said, Doctor, the policies are in place, and if you if you really internalize these policies, they are very good, very well-written policies. They have taken into account everything that is plaguing our people. The issue now comes back to the implementation. The NDP3, for example, it's a very beautiful, a very, very, very beautiful plan. The national NDP3 is, a parish development model rather. It is very good. It is very good, and it's well written, and on paper it looks like it is going to work. But if we still do not tackle the issue of implementation, what is plaguing all the previous models? What is wrong with
implementation? Yes. And what should the citizen, what are the citizens expected to do?
Yes. Now, with implementation, the thing is, corruption plagues a lot of the implementation of these government programs. Because I'll give you an example of NADS. NADS would have actually pulled people out of poverty. It was a good way, deliver inputs to farmers. But the way it was implemented, you're not going to go to Bundibujo and you develop, say, cocoa seedlings, go and dump them without preparing the farmers, dump them to them and say plant cocoa. Farmers in Bundibujo know how to make their own cocoa seedlings. They are not short of cocoa seedlings. Yes, some of them might not have that, but the issue is how is the project being implemented? If it is done in a phased way, in a guided way, and you're not just throwing, seedlings. Seedlings were drying up on the streets. Coffee seedlings, were drying up on the streets. People were not ready for, they were not prepared for these seedlings. Even the ones that were actually planted, they are, they talk about the matoke, if you know about the matoke. Anywhere you go and they say, hago matoke gana dizmavi, you see? Why? It's because of that implementation. It wasn't done the right way. The right procedures were not followed. The right technical, guidelines or guidance wasn't put into use. It wasn't put into use. And that is why these programs and policies really keep on failing. And it is very unfortunate to do something the same way over and over again and expect different results. See? And that is what really is going wrong. We are doing things the same way, but somehow hoping that we are going to get different results, which is very unfortunate.
What should the government do to do it differently so that we can now achieve the target? Because we are part of the equation.
There has to really be a deliberate effort to fight corruption in this country. There has to be a deliberate effort. Government has to take it upon themselves to have a very effective anti-corruption strategy. that is really going to see projects implemented as they should be implemented. And of course, we are not going to put aside the meddling. You know, some of the implementation is meddled with, and we're unable actually to achieve the gains that, or the benefits of these intended projects. Let us empower the technical or the technocrats to actually do their work. Once we empower them to do their work, we build their capacity, we fight corruption, and we actually go ahead to implement what we have said without anyone meddling in it, then we are really going to have some changes.
Do you think that there is much more difference? Because they're not doing the same things differently, but there's something which was done differently. Maybe I'm expecting it to be having an analytical point of view of different results. When there was a slight substitution of the supervision of the agricultural fund, which was being released through the Ministry of Agriculture, and which this time around was tagged under a new operation, which is called Operation Wealth Creation, right? And that one, at the district level and sub-consequence level, supervisors who were called upon and deployed, right, is basically via the profession of the military, the Uganda People Defense Forces. Some of the senior or middle senior military officers in the rank of colonels, in the rank of lieutenant colonels, to go and supervise this program, and the different results which were expected, especially in this operation. You know, right now we have Operation Suju in the Congo. So it looked to be very, very critical, but yet I don't know whether this has added value. What is your take on that?
Again, like I said,
as we go for the break in the next 1 minute.
Like I said, soldiers are good at fighting. Why are you going to take soldiers who are experienced in fighting and in law and order and security, and you go and put them to supervise things to do with agriculture, technical, matters to do with agriculture? I understand the discipline in the army. And actually, regarding the fishing, the army has really did a good job for the years.
Victoria.
Yes. So for that one, I can give them the props and say, yes, they managed it regarding the discipline, because it was in their mandate. They said, do not go to fish with this size of a net. We get you, we're going to penalize.
Thank you. Let's go for the commercial break. We shall beat on that. Please stay tuned on Smart 24 TV, where you can only receive the point and analyzing the economic policies of the country.